I rise to raise ongoing deep concerns about the situation with school standards in this country. We all believe in the transformational power of education and how critical this is to young Australians and to the future of our nation. But there is a growing crisis, and again today I call on the Albanese government to take the urgent action required to address Australia's declining school standards, which have become a national embarrassment and are putting at serious risk, our reputation as a nation that delivers first-class education across the globe. In shocking NAPLAN results released a number of months ago, 1 in 3 students is failing numeracy and literacy tests, with only 15% of students achieving above the expected standard. On almost every score, Australian students are going backwards. That 1 in 3 students is not meeting expected standards in literacy and numeracy is absolutely shocking. The NAPLAN results released mean students are twice as likely to fail than to excel in the classroom. Fixing this is not as simple as saying we need more funding. I'm not saying funding is not an important issue, but the evidence makes it very clear that in the past 2 decades, despite a 60% increase in schools funding, our standards have continued to decline. The Albanese government needs to focus on the foundations of a good education, reading, writing and arithmetic, by mandating evidence-based teaching methods in every Australian classroom. Acting Deputy Madam President, those school systems and those schools which have adopted proven teaching methods are flying. Schools like the Marsden Road Public School in Liverpool, Sydney, where 90% of students are from a non-English speaking background in a low SES area of Sydney, and yet by adopting the best evidence-based teaching and learning approach, by ensuring that students are taught explicitly, including, of course, the teaching of phonics, civics and citizenship, where children are taught what is expected of them, how to behave. This school has transformed the young lives of these children. Their NAPLAN results are going through the roof in the last 5 years under the incredible leadership of the principal, Manisha Gazula. And there are many schools now adopting evidence-based teaching and learning methods, and they are seeing what a massive difference this makes, including the Canberra-Goulburn Catholic education system, which too is doing extraordinary work. So I am deeply concerned that we haven't seen the momentum to really focus on what works in the classroom under this government. And I have to say, this is not about the quality of Australian teachers who are hardworking, who are so dedicated, so committed. They are being let down by not having all of the tools and all of the resources, and they are being profoundly let down by university teacher training courses. The universities have been exposed as being completely deficient in providing adequate teacher training as a general rule. There are some exceptions. The IPA released a report last week that showed that 1/3 of all units of study in teacher training courses were about social justice causes, and only a much smaller amount of units of study were devoted to literacy and numeracy. So the IPA has done some exceptional work in that regard. Teachers can only excel in the classroom if they are supported by the best evidence-based teaching and learning methods. Now, I do note that the Education Minister, Jason Clare, has proposed some catch-up tutorials, but frankly he is tinkering at the edges. The government needs to urgently address the fundamental cause of these declining standards in our schools, and I understand and appreciate and acknowledge that the work of the expert panel into the next National School Reform Agreement its report was handed to government on the 31st of October, but unfortunately it has been kept secret. I called through the Senate for that report to be made public, and I will keep on prosecuting the case. We need to see what this expert panel, led by Dr Lisa O'Brien, who also chairs the Australian Education Research Organisation, we need to see what they are saying about what needs to happen in our schools, and I'm very disappointed that the government, as we face another start to an academic year, the government is keeping this report a secret. What we need is not more smooth talk from the minister, but we need tough action. And I just want to reflect on some of the dire statistics. As the Australian Education Research Organisation has made clear, 1 in 5 Year 7 students has the reading ability of a child in grade 4. Only 26% of Year 9 students are using correct pronunciation, with the majority writing at a Year 3 level. ERO has also found that students who perform below expectations in their Year 3 NAPLAN are at risk of continuing to fall below par throughout their schooling. In other words, they never catch up. And our international PISA results, the Program for International Student Assessment, are very grim. 20 years ago, Australia ranked 4th internationally in reading, 8th in science and 11th in maths. Now we have fallen to 16th in reading, 17th in science and 29th in maths. Australia has lost the equivalent of 1 year's worth of learning over the past 2 decades. We were once on par with top-performing nations such as Singapore. Now the average 15-year-old Singaporean is 3 years ahead of their Australian counterparts. Next week, the next PISA results will be released by the OECD, by Matthias Cormann. We are holding our breath that Australia will perform better, but I am not feeling overly confident, particularly after what our students endured through 2 years of the pandemic, when so many students were locked down and trying to learn under the most difficult of circumstances. The battle to restore the highest standards in our schools is compounded by declining attendance rates, an overcrowded curriculum, a growing teacher shortage crisis, which the government is not taking seriously enough, and of course providing teacher scholarships to only government schools, as if non-government schools don't matter, which is really appalling. We've got the crisis with disruption in classrooms. Australia is 70th worst, and I do have to acknowledge Senator O'Sullivan, who is chairing a committee inquiry into classroom disruption, which is a major issue and, of course, is leading to so many teachers finding that they just cannot cope in the classroom anymore and leaving the profession in droves. We are seeing a really regrettable upsurge in activism in the classroom, and the conduct of the teacher unions in relation to some of the activism over the last week, bringing Palestinian activists into the classroom, which is a breach of their code of conduct and their obligations to teach students impartially and without bias, frankly, should be condemned, and I do condemn this, and I raised it in question time yesterday. Very regrettably, the Minister who represents the Minister for Education in this place, Senator Watt, did not condemn the teacher unions for, frankly, their unacceptable conduct. And then, of course, we have the Australian curriculum. The Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, frankly, I don't know what ACARA is doing. Learning First has just handed down a very good report. Ben Jensen, the Chief Executive of Learning First, has said, and I'm quoting an article, Curriculum Crisis, A Tale of Politics Over Performance by Paul Kelly today. We were shocked there were only 5 topics dealt with in relation to science, in depth compared with 22 topics covered in depth in the science systems of other countries. The thing that just hits you in the face is that when you look at the documentation side by side and you hear teacher after teacher saying that the alternative would be so much easier to teach, ACARA is fundamentally failing our students, and the government needs to take grip of the fact that our curriculum, in so many respects, is not fit for purpose, and urgent action is required on that front as well. Thank you.